I want you to meet two people, and I want you to pay close attention to both of them. Because by the time I'm done showing you their lives, something is going to click that most people spend their entire working lives never figuring out. The first person is Sarah. Sarah makes $95,000 a year. That is genuinely good money. Most households in America don't clear that number. And Sarah earned every dollar of it through years of hard work, late nights, and the kind of quiet grinding that doesn't make for exciting stories, but does make for a real career. She went to school, she got a good job, she earned promotions, she did all the things you're supposed to do. By any reasonable measure, Sarah is a success story. The second person is James. James makes $54,000 a year. He works a normal job, earns normal money, and has never had the kind of career trajectory that makes people sit up and pay attention at dinner parties. If you met Sarah and James at the same social gathering, you would know immediately who was doing better. Sarah's clothes are nicer. She drives a better car. She mentions restaurants that cost more. She looks like someone who has arrived somewhere. James looks like someone's still on the way. Here is the thing, though. James has more money than Sarah. Not a little more. A lot more. Sarah has $2,200 in her savings account. That is the whole number. $2,200. If Sarah lost her job tomorrow, she could cover her bills for about 3 weeks before the math became a genuine emergency. James, on the other hand, has enough saved to pay every single bill he has for 14 months without earning a single dollar. 14 months of complete financial runway, sitting there, calm and ready. Sarah earns almost double what James earns, and James has nearly 10 times her financial security. The person making half the money is winning by every measure that actually matters. How does that happen? That is what this video is about. My name is Jerry, and this is Explained Financially. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly what James understands about money that Sarah doesn't, why the gap between their savings has nothing to do with their incomes, and what you can actually do about it if you recognize more of yourself in Sarah than you'd like to admit. By the end of this video, you are going to see something that most personal finance content spends very little time on, because it's not complicated enough to fill a course and not exciting enough to go viral. But it is the single most important thing that determines whether you actually build wealth over a lifetime. Let's start with a walk through Sarah's apartment, because the apartment tells you everything before I explain a single thing. She has a 75-inch television on the wall that costs $1,800. She has a leather sectional sofa that costs $3,500. Her kitchen is full of gadgets. An espresso machine, an air fryer, a stand mixer, a sous vide cooker, most of which were used 2 or 3 times and now live in the back of cabinets like artifacts from a life that was supposed to feel better than it does. Her closet is packed. Her spare bedroom is packed. She rents a storage unit for $120 a month, and it is full of things she hasn't touched in 2 years, but she can't throw them away because they cost too much money when she bought them. When Sarah checks her bank account, she feels a knot in her stomach. She has $2,200 and 2 missed paychecks away from real trouble. James's apartment tells a different story the moment you walk in. The first thing you notice is space, not emptiness. Space. A normal couch that is comfortable and has been sat on thousands of times. A reasonably sized television. A kitchen with exactly the tools that get used regularly. A good knife, a cast iron skillet, a coffee maker that costs $30 and works perfectly every single morning. His closet has clothes in it. Not a collection, just clothes, things that get worn. His spare bedroom is actually a bedroom. When James checks his bank account, he feels calm. He has 14 months of expenses saved. He invests 20% of every paycheck automatically, and he sleeps through the night without doing mental arithmetic about whether he can cover next month's rent if something goes wrong. Same neighborhood, similar rent, nearly half the income, 10 times the financial security. The explanation for this gap is actually very simple, and once you see it, you'll wonder how you ever missed it. Sarah has built a lifestyle that costs everything she earns. James has built a lifestyle that costs less than he earns. That's it. The entire explanation lives in that one sentence. The gap between what you earn and what you spend, the margin, the leftover, the breathing room, is the whole game. It is not your salary. It is not your investment returns. It is not your side hustle or your stock picks or your financial advisor. It is the gap. If the gap doesn't exist, none of the rest of it works. If the gap does exist, almost everything else takes care of itself over time. Sarah earns 95,000 and her lifestyle costs 95,000. Her gap is 0. James earns 54,000 and his lifestyle costs 38,000. His gap is 16,000 every year. That $16,000 is the entire reason James wins. There is no other reason. There is no secret strategy. There is no clever trick. There is just a gap. And James has one. And Sarah doesn't. Now, I want to show you something that changed the way I think about every purchase, and I think it will change the way you think about them too. Everything you own costs you money twice. The first cost is the one you see. The price tag, the number on the receipt, the amount that left your bank account when you bought it. Everyone sees this cost. Everyone factors it into their decision. It's the number the store shows you, the number your brain anchors to, the number you use to decide if something is worth it. But there is a second cost. And for many things you own, the second cost is larger than the first, and almost nobody calculates it. The second cost is storage. Every single object you own takes up space, and space costs money. In most cities, residential space runs about $30 to $50 per square foot per year when you do the math honestly. Sarah's treadmill takes up about 20 square feet when you account for the clearance space around it. That's between $600 and $1,000 per year in space she is paying for just to store a piece of equipment that statistically becomes a clothes hanger within 6 months of purchase. She's not just paying for the treadmill. She's paying rent on the treadmill's little corner of her apartment every single month, whether she uses it or not. The second cost is maintenance. Every object needs some form of upkeep. Cleaning, servicing, repairing, insuring. Sarah's boat-owning neighbor pays about 10% of his boat's value every year just in maintenance costs, which means a $30,000 boat costs $3,000 per year to own even if it never leaves the driveway. The meter runs whether you use the thing or not. The second cost is mental energy, which is the one nobody talks about because it doesn't show up on a bank statement, but researchers have found that visual clutter measurably increases stress hormones and reduces your brain's ability to focus. Every item you own occupies a small slice of your mental bandwidth. Your stuff is quietly stressing you out in ways you can't consciously perceive, and that adds up across thousands of items accumulated over years. And then there's the biggest second cost of all, the one that should make you genuinely stop and recalculate everything: opportunity cost. Every dollar spent on a possession is a dollar that's not compounding in an investment. You didn't just buy a home gym. You bought a home gym instead of $40,000 in future wealth. When you add up storage, maintenance, mental energy, and opportunity cost, a lot of the things you own cost more over their lifetime than they cost to purchase. The receipt is just the beginning of the bill. James understands this, not necessarily in a spreadsheet way, but in his gut. He has internalized that things cost more than their price tags, and he has decided deliberately that most things aren't worth the full price when you calculate it honestly. This leads to the first thing James does differently, and it's something you can start doing today. Before any purchase, James estimates how many times he will realistically use it. Not how many times he hopes to use it, not how many times the best and most disciplined version of himself would use it, but how many times he will actually use it given his real life and his real habits. Then he divides the total cost by that number. This gives him the cost per use, which is the only honest measure of whether something is worth buying. A $300 kitchen gadget used 3 times a year costs $100 per use. A $30 kitchen tool used every week costs 58 cents per use over the first year. The cheap tool is 170 times more economical than the expensive one, even though the expensive one costs 10 times as much to start. A $200 jacket worn twice costs $100 per wear. A $400 jacket worn 200 times costs $2 per wear. The expensive jacket is 50 times cheaper in any meaningful sense. Cost per use cuts through the excitement of a purchase and reveals what it actually is, and it destroys most impulse purchases instantly because most impulse purchases have terrible cost per use numbers. A $2,000 mattress slept on every night for 10 years costs about 55 cents per night. That is extraordinary value for something that affects your health and energy every single day. The math shows you where things are genuinely worth buying, and it shows you where they aren't. The second thing James does is something he calls the replacement test, though he didn't give it that name. It's just how he thinks. He walks through his home periodically and looks at each item and asks himself one honest question. If this disappeared today, would I actually spend money to replace it? Not would I miss it? Not would it be inconvenient? Would I go and buy another one? For most things in most homes, the honest answer is no. The fondue set? No. The bread maker in the cabinet? No. The clothes worn once in the last 2 years? No. These things exist through inertia, not intention. They were impulse purchases. Gifts felt obligated to keep remnants of old hobbies. They have negative value. They cost space, mental energy, and maintenance without providing any real benefit. James removes them. He sells what has value, donates what someone could use, and discards the rest. The result isn't deprivation. It's clarity, and clarity is worth more than it sounds. The third thing James does is refuse to upgrade out of boredom, and this one is sneakier than it sounds. Sarah's phone works perfectly. It makes calls, sends messages, runs every app she uses. But a new model came out and the camera is slightly better. She upgrades. She does this every 2 to 3 years, each time replacing a phone that still works with a phone that works slightly better. Over 30 years, this pattern across phones alone costs $12,000 to $18,000. Apply the same upgrade cycle to cars, furniture, appliances, electronics, and clothing, and the lifetime waste from replacing things that still work easily exceeds $200,000. $200,000. Not from reckless spending, not from one catastrophic mistake, but from a long series of small upgrades that each felt completely reasonable in the moment. James's rule is simple. Replace something when it genuinely fails to perform its function, not when a newer version exists, not when he's bored with it, not when his neighbor got something nicer. Boredom is not failure. The existence of a newer model is not failure. Actual breakdown is failure. Everything else is marketing designed to solve a problem he doesn't have. The fourth thing James does is engineer his environment so that saving is easy and spending is hard, because he knows that willpower runs out and systems don't. Sarah's setup makes spending frictionless. Stored credit card numbers on every retail site, shopping apps on her phone, promotional emails arriving daily. James deleted the shopping apps, removed his saved payment details from websites, so every online purchase requires getting up and finding his wallet, unsubscribed from every promotional email, and instituted a 48-hour rule for any non-essential purchase. The 48-hour rule alone eliminates most impulse purchases because most of the desire fades on its own when you can't act on it instantly. The wanting was never really about the object. It was about the momentary emotional relief of deciding to buy something. Remove the ability to act immediately, and the desire usually dissolves. On the saving side, James makes it automatic. On payday, money moves to his investment account before he ever sees it in his checking account. He never has to decide to save. It just happens. He treats his savings contribution like a fixed bill. Something that gets paid first, not an afterthought that happens with whatever is left over at the end of the month. Sarah treats saving as optional and spending as default. James treats saving as mandatory and spending as whatever is left after the mandatory part. The fifth thing, and this is the one that separates people who build real wealth from people who just earn more money, is that James decided what enough looks like before his income could outgrow his values. Most people never do this. When Sarah gets a raise, she upgrades something. When she gets promoted, the apartment gets bigger. Her income goes up and her lifestyle expands to meet it, and the gap stays at zero no matter how much she earns. People earning $300,000 a year report feeling just as financially stressed as people earning $80,000 because the lifestyle expands alongside every raise. Without a finish line, you are running an endless race where the goalposts move every time you get close. James defined the finish line early. He decided what kind of home is sufficient, what kind of transportation meets his needs, what level of comfort constitutes genuine satisfaction. And then he kept living at that level, even as his income grew. The extra income didn't go into a bigger apartment, it went into his gap. This is the whole mechanism: define enough, earn more than enough, and keep the difference. The person who defined enough at $38,000 of annual spending and earns $54,000 builds wealth at a pace that has nothing to do with their income level and everything to do with their margin. The sixth thing James does differently is measure his wealth by what he can choose rather than what he can show. Sarah measures wealth by what she has: the television, the car, the clothes, the visible markers. James measures wealth by what he can do. Can he leave a job that's damaging his health? Yes. Can he take 3 months off to handle a family emergency? Yes. Can he say no to an opportunity that pays well but costs him something more important? Yes. Can he start something new without a guaranteed income? Yes. This freedom, this optionality, is what James considers real wealth, and it is only available to people who have built substantial margin between their income and their spending. Sarah has none of this freedom. She cannot leave her job, cannot take real risks, cannot say no to anything that pays, because her lifestyle requires every single dollar she earns to sustain itself. Her beautiful life is the thing holding her captive. Spending less leads to saving more. Saving more creates genuine security. Genuine security reduces the emotional drive to spend, because a lot of spending is actually an attempt to feel safe and in control. And when you actually are safe and in control, the urge to spend diminishes on its own. Reduced spending accelerates saving further. Each step makes the next step easier. Sarah can break her cycle, not by earning less, not by moving to a cheaper city, not by some dramatic lifestyle overhaul, just by making the gap exist, by letting some of what she earns stay, by protecting that margin and letting it compound. The 6 rules James follows: cost per use, the replacement test, no upgrades out of boredom, saving systems over willpower, defining enough, and measuring wealth by options rather than objects. These are not deprivation strategies. They are clarity strategies. They are the difference between a life owned by its possessions and a life that owns them. The person earning $54,000 with a gap will always, eventually beat the person earning $95,000 without one. Not because of luck, not because of intelligence, not because of some financial strategy too complicated to explain. Because of the gap. Because every month some money is left over, and that money compounds, and compounding is patient and relentless and doesn't care what your salary is. It only cares about the gap. Subscribe to Explain financially if you want the next breakdown. I'll see you there.